We're V'hinei Shechina. Hey Aleph. V'hinei Shechina nikret b'katuv b'shem mar'ah, or mar'eh.
A mirror.
Oh, so really in the Psukim it's a mar'eh. B'mar'eh alayla. In a vision. So the Shechina is called also a vision. This is a very important thing. In Kabbalah there's tons about this. The Tikkun Ezor has a few pages on this concept, what it really means. But we said Shechina is Malchus, and Malchus is called a mirror, or a vision. And
Malchus is transferring from this side to that side.
Also, right, there's also that. Sort of like when you look through a pane of glass. So there is what goes through it. There's also a reflection in every pane of glass because of its thickness. So there are some rays of light that today in our theory, like in Newton's theory of optics, the ray of light is refracted, it's called. So some of it returns back to you. It's a good idea. It's a good way of understanding that you could actually have a mirror between the worlds, and most of the light would go through, but a lot of it would return. And you would actually get a vision of it. In any case, here he's going to use the concept of a mirror the way we understand it, as having some kind of coating on the other side. As Hashem says about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he shows him through a mirror. The question is, through a vision. The question is, again, whether the vision is clear, transparent, or translucent. All the prophets saw the reflection. They couldn't see directly through it. But Moshe Rabbeinu, he sees through it. In any case, the point is that Shechina is sometimes called a vision, which is also the name that we use for mirror. It's very interesting. The word mirror itself sounds like mar'ah. Like the mem resh at the beginning sounds very similar. I don't know if there's a relationship or not. והעניין שהוא על דרך משל כמו המראה הגשמית, שפעולתה להראות לאדם משהו למאחוריו. The idea is that, like the physical mirror, whose purpose is to show a person what's behind him. Okay, it's very interesting that he doesn't say to look at himself. It's to see what's behind him. It's a very different concept. This in and of itself is very revealing. You could say that it's...
There were no mirrors in Chabad.
Halacha says that a man in general shouldn't look in a mirror. This is already a very early thing. 1,000 years at least before Chabad, maybe even more. So it's very interesting. It says there is a mirror. The mirror is like the mirror you have on a car. It has a function. The function is to show you what's behind. And it was never meant for you to look at yourself. Why does he say this? Because you have to be very careful with these visions. The whole idea of using a vision or a dream or whatever is that a person is self-engrossed and self-involved. So because of that, he tends to interpret what he's seeing as talking about himself. Or worse, he's not seeing anything, he's just seeing himself. There's nothing new. And that's the real golus. That's when you call it that your kingdom is in a state of exile. That it's fallen so low that you can only see yourself in the mirror. Instead of understanding the way you're supposed to see in the mirror serves as a function to see other things. What would be the example? The example in the nefesh is that the reason I have a body, which is the kingdom, the reason the neshama comes down into a kingdom, and every body is called a kingdom, Yarich Yamim al Mamlachto, really means also that a person should have a long and dominant life over his body, that he can control his needs, his appetites, and also his bodily functions. He shouldn't fall into illness and so on. So if the person comes into his body and all he sees is himself, so that's exactly the wrong function of the mirror. Okay. So why is it that women are allowed to look in the mirror?
To get a shidduch.
Oh, they're allowed to see more than that. Because beauty has a different function for a woman. And she's looking at the beauty, not necessarily at herself. She's able to separate the two. But the male, apparently he can't. If he's going to start looking at his own, what he looks like, so that'll, without doubt, lead him to self-involvement and to self-infatuation. And narcissism, in the end, that's really what it is. And it's not by chance that the original narcissist was man. Narcissist. How does this work? והיינו על ידי שהזכוכית מצופה בציפוי כסף שהוא מכסה ומסתיר על הזכוכית, ומונע את הרעות בלתי תוכל להתפשט עוד להעלה. So the whole point is that it works the same way. You can't see through the mirror, through the glass. The coating on the other side doesn't allow your eyesight to go through to go beyond the glass.
Too much money stops you seeing further.
Okay. So I don't want to get into this whole, we've talked about this before, that the picture of eyesight in the ancient world was completely different than our picture of it. The ancient world was about subjective eyesight, we're about objective eyesight. The difference being whether the light comes, as it were, out of the eye or the light goes into the eye. In any case, it's not so important right now. It's the same thing that we talked about before. If you only have transparency, if only God's light were only revealed, then there would be no sense of separate self. The fact that there's anything behind, as it were, so that itself, or not behind, but that you stop the light penetrating the mirror and therefore you see what's behind you, that itself is like what Hashem set up the kingdom, the Malchus in the world. So that there will be a separate sense of self. ומחמת העיכוב והמניעה נעשה אור חוזר עד שתיפול הרעות גם לאחוריו. So thanks to this, the light, again, he treats it like the light is coming out of the eye. It's hitting the mirror and it's going behind. And it's thanks to the coating on the other side of the glass of the mirror that allows this to happen. So this wouldn't happen if there was no coating. If you put something that's not thin and reflective, like silver, they used to use silver. I don't know if they had any better materials 250 years ago. If you put a piece of stone,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. You won't see anything. לא יראה בכלום. וכך יובן הנמשל. And now for the parable, for the meaning of this parable. והוא כי שם הוויה הוא בבחינת המשכה מלמעלה למטה כנ"ל. We said that Havaya is a descent from above to below, a revelation of Hashem. That's what Havaya is. ובחינת מלכותו יתברך, שהוא הנקרא בשם אלוקים, היינו בחינת צמצום והסתר. And the Malchus, which is the name Elokim, that is used to conceal, to diminish the light of Hashem in the world. שבה מסתתרת ומתעלמת הערה בלתי תתפשט ותתגלה עוד כנ"ל. So that there's an end, there's a limit to how much the revelation of Hashem is in the world. And again, that allows for the existence of a separate consciousness, and that allows the process that Hashem wants, which is that the separate consciousness come to nullify itself before Hashem. And that's the nachas that he has. ומחמת צמצום ואלם זה נעשה אור חוזר. But now, the mirror adds something a little bit more to us. Until now, we just thought that by there being Elokim, so it stops the light, the divine light stops from filling all of reality. And or not filling, it fills it anyway, but from overwhelming reality in such a way that there can't be something separate. But now we learn that the fact that there is Elokim, kingdom, Shechina, all these things is like the coating on the mirror, and it allows the light that came down into the world to be reflected back up, to rise, to elevate. And here, by going back up, we mean to return to its source in the sense of becoming divine again. That's the reflected light.
That's not the original light.
No, it's after it hits the coating, or after it's ingrained.
It's the same light, or it's a different light? It's a different picture.
It's gone through some kind of change, but it's obviously the energy is still from the source. The energy is still from the source, but as we see, something has changed in it. And the something that has changed in it, it's sort of like, the question would be, is the reflected light, like how we understand that whatever hit the mirror is what went back. We wouldn't say in physics today that there is a different wavelength now. It's still the same wavelength, it's still the same frequency, it's all the same, it has the same energy. Maybe it lost a little bit of energy by hitting the mirror, but it's negligible, let's say. Or is it like a swimmer who reaches the end of the pool, and as there's a word for it, they bounce off the wall, they add energy because of their muscles. And so when they're pushing against the wall, after they make the churn, so they get a lot of more energy. Okay.
Power.
Which one is it? So it's more like the swimmer. Why? Because this is not a passive process, it's an active process. As an active process, it requires the person to do something in order to return the light. So, admittedly, there are also passive returns of light, but when it comes to a human being, the light that's returned is returned because of a choice to have it returned. Or at least some choice is involved in it. That's why it's feminine. Feminine in general is choice. This is a general principle in Chassidus. That the feminine represents the freedom of choice in the human being. That's why the lowest in the order of the names of Hashem, the Arizal says Ab, Sag, Ma, Ban. Right? 72, 63, 45, and 52. Why is 52 lower than 45? It should, according to the Seder, the mathematical Seder should have been the 52 and then 45. But 45 is the masculine, Adam. It's Za, Zer and Pin. And 52 is the Nukva, it's the Malchus. It's the feminine. It's the lowest, even though it has a higher number. Why is it the lowest? Because that's where the reflection occurs. And so the feminine, which has the power of choice, has to go all the way down. Because you can't lift the bottom without choice, without will. The bottom's too heavy to lift otherwise. If you would just come with the Ma, just with the name Ma, it affects the bottom, but it can't lift it. It's sort of like you don't send somebody to lift a building if they're too weak, if they don't have the right tools. So here the feminine has the right tools. The right tool is the choice, is the power of will that the feminine aspect of the world has to lift things.
So you're saying that a woman can look at something and see different things?
So she has more an ability to separate. ומחמת צמצום ואלם זה נעשה אור חוזר שהוא חוזר ועולה למעלה יותר מכפי ערך כוח מקור ההארה. And the way that this added energy is expressed is that when the light returns, it reaches beyond its source. And it's called אור חוזר, חוזר לקדמותו ממש. And kadmuto means to where before it came out. So it's able to go beyond where it started being revealed. It goes back to its actual source. There's a lot to be said, but leave it like this. המתפשטת. מכפי ערך כוח מקור ההארה מתפשט לשם הוויה, because it goes beyond Havaya. Havaya, we said, is where it's first revealed, because Havaya means revelation. וכמו שכתוב, אשת חיל עטרת בעלה. וכתיב, והיה אור לבנה כאור החמה. That actually, the woman of valor, she's the crown of her husband. She's above her husband. And again, this means that the feminine aspect can return to a higher source than even where the revelation of the masculine is. And Havaya is like the masculine, Elokim here, the returning light, is the feminine. Or when we say in the Pasuk that the light of the moon will be like the light of the sun. We mean like, it will be more. It actually be more. Okay. והיינו כמשל המראה שעל ידי הכיסוי מסתיר מונע התפשטות הערה נעשה אור חוזר עד למרחק ודי למבין. וזהו שכתוב הולד שבת בשבתו. And that's why we call it, the seventh day is the kingdom, it's the Malchus, and we call it the Ola of Shabbos. Okay, the elevation of Shabbos, whereas in I think in regard to the weekdays it's just called Korban Tamid. Asuya, what's the language? Asuya Behar Sinai. If you want to learn the laws of this Korban, go back to the Ola that Moshe Rabbeinu gave and sacrificed on Mount Sinai. But I think it's not called an Ola. I have to check. I don't remember. But by Shabbos it's explicit. Olat Shabbat b'Shabbato. And b'Shabbato is also an idea of returning to the source. V'chen ma she'amur Razal al pasuk be'ulat Baal. That's what we learned yesterday from Ketuvos, that Sarah was called be'ulat Baal, be'aliyato shel Baal olayimo. That when the husband goes up, she can go up with him, but he can't bring her down because the essence of the feminine is to rise. Meaning the feminine is always a state of going from below to above. Maim nukvin. As we talked about it yesterday.
Did you have in the Chumash the story of the man who divorces his wife? And then she goes to marry somebody else.
It's all from the woman.
And so the second husband either dies or divorces her. So you want to say that the hashpa'ah, it comes from the woman.
From the woman.
You just said that the man can't go down.
No, if he goes down, it's his problem. She doesn't have to come with him. He can only follow her essence, which is to go up. That he can force her to do. If he wants her to go to a higher level, that he can do. But he can't downgrade her, because her essence is always to go up. That doesn't mean that she can't, by going up, ruin somebody. You have to be smart about how you go up. Again, there's people who go up in a, I don't know, they go up in an elevator. It used to be that way once. That if you were going up, somebody had to be coming down. Today the elevators use weights and other things to get over this. But it used to be the elevators had to be in pairs. Because if one went up, the other one had to go down. So if you go up, make sure that nobody's on the other side going down. Okay. ועיין מה שכתוב בפסוק הריני את מראייך. In Shir Shirim, there's a pasuk, show me your visage, basically your face, but really it's show me your mirrors. מרותיי, like saying מרותייך. שזהו גם כן עניין ירידת הנשמה בגוף המסתיר, שהוא צורך עלייה לחזור ממטה למעלה להתקלל באור השם. Like we said, the body itself is the kingdom, and the body itself is supposed to provide you with the springboard to reflect the light. And not just to reflect it, but to actually come to a higher source. And that's what we say all the time, that the mitzvahs that we do with the body when we're in the body, we can't do them without the body. You can't even learn to a certain extent without the body. You can learn as an idea, but you can't learn as a mitzvah. That you can only do in this world where you have a body, where the body can be commanded to actually refrain from other things and sit down and learn. So all these allow the mitzvos to add something to the neshama that it didn't have before, because the neshama is like a revelation of Hashem, and what it's missing is the reflection that can send it even higher than its source. והוא גם כן מה שכתוב ויעש השם אלוקים לאדם ולאשתו כותנות אור וילבישם שהוא בחינת לבוש המכסה ומעלים. And the original idea for this is also from the garments that Hashem gave them. Meaning, and the way it's explained in Kabbalah, of course, is that before that their body was transparent, meaning that it wasn't the body that we know now, that this whole story of Gan Eden, according to the Mekubalim, is not happening in this world at all. It's something that's entirely spiritual, and it's talking about the neshama in this state and in that state. These are all important drushim and so on and so forth. The bottom line is that in the end, Hashem dressed him in something, and that something allows hitlabshut. It allows the divine light to be integrated into the person. Before then, the light couldn't be integrated. That's what it means that they were transparent.
But both the man and the woman got garments.
Okay.
But in the base of Mikdash, only the Kohanim get garments, not the women.
So hopefully other people also walk around with something on them.
No, the special garments. Because you both the dresses.
Uh-huh. We talked about this, that the whole concept of Kohanim is relatively feminine. That's why they need garments.
Yeah.
Okay. What do?
Shift garments.
House cleaning, housekeeping. It's a very feminine job.